One number sits on a board report, committed exposure to a single counterparty. It looks settled. It looks authoritative. Let's pull the thread on it. Where did this number come from? Which system is the source of record? Whose definition of committed exposure did it use, treasuries or finances? Because those two are not always the same. What policy governs how it's calculated? And if we change that policy tomorrow, what else on this report would move? And the last one, who is the person accountable for it? Who would put their name to it in front of an examiner? In most institutions, nobody can answer that chain end to end. The number is confident. The trail behind it is not. Quick recap, 30 seconds. Episode 1. The model isn't your advantage. Governed institutional knowledge is. Episode 2. That knowledge comes in 3 kinds. Knowledge, what's true, expertise, how work is done, norms, what's permitted, and they're inseparable. Today's question is the one those two leave open. Why must all of this be connected instead of just listed? Here is the same metric, drawn 2 ways. On the left, the artifact view. A clean list, a definition, a source table, a policy document, a procedure, an owner's name, everything you'd want, sitting in a row. It looks complete, but notice what it can't tell you. It can't tell you that this definition draws from that source, governed by this policy, produced by that procedure, attested by this person. The connections aren't there. On the right, the relationship view. Same 5 things, but now they're connected. Each line is a fact in its own right, draws from, governed by, produced by, owned by. The list and the graph hold the same artifacts, only one of them holds the meaning. Let's actually walk the edges. Start at the metric. First edge, it draws from its golden source, the system designated as authoritative for that data, not just any system that happens to hold a copy. Next edge, lineage, the traceable path from that source through every transformation to the number on the report, where it came from, and everything that happened to it on the way. Next, the governing policy, the rule that defines how committed exposure is to be calculated and what counts. Next, the producing procedure, the actual documented steps that generate the figure, period after period. And the last edge, the one that makes it defensible, the accountable owner, a named person who attests that this is correct. Attestation, a signature with a name behind it. Now the number isn't floating. Every question from the cold open has an edge that answers it. That is the asset, not the boxes, the lines between them. So what do the edges actually buy you? 2 things. Here's the first. Without connections, every system is an island. An AI agent standing on one of them sees its own data and nothing else. It can't tell that the exposure figure here relates to the policy over there. So it does the only thing it can. It guesses, or it rederives the meaning locally, and now you have a second, slightly different version of the truth. With the edges in place, the agent can follow them, from the metric to its source, to the policy that governs it, to the owner who attests. It reasons across the institution instead of treating each system as a world unto itself. That's the difference between an AI that operates inside one box and an AI that understands how the boxes relate. The second thing the edges buy you, traceability. An AI system produces an output. The question the second line of defense and internal audit will always ask is, on what basis? Show me the trail. If the meaning lives in connections, that trail exists. You walk the edges backward, from the output to the procedure that produced it, to the policy that governs it, to the lineage, to the golden source, to the owner who attests. Every AI output traces to its authoritative basis. That's what turns AI from a thing examiners worry about into a capability you can defend. Hold on to these 4 questions. Who approved it? What's its lineage? What depends on it? When was it last reviewed? We'll meet that card again. Now, the word graph makes some people reach for a specific piece of technology, a graph database, the latest thing to buy. That's not the point, and it misses what matters. When we say graph, we don't mean a product, we mean a shape, the shape where the connections carry the value. Watch the diagram. Gray out the boxes, and you've lost some labels. Gray out the lines, and you've lost the entire meaning. The institution is back to a pile of disconnected facts. The graph framing matters because the value is in the relationships, not the individual artifacts. That sentence is the whole episode. One more thing the edges give you, and it sets up a later episode. Suppose you change one node. You revise the policy that governs committed exposure. In the list view, that's just an edit to one document. In the graph, it's something bigger. The edges tell you what's downstream. The producing procedure depends on that policy. The metric depends on the procedure. The report depends on the metric. Change the node, and the connections reveal the blast radius. We'll build that into a real control. Change propagation in episode 9. Let's name the misconception out loud, because it's the most common one here. A graph is just a buzzword for a database. If that's the takeaway, the whole idea has been missed. A database is where you store artifacts. The point of the graph is not storage, it's the relationships, the lineage, the governing policy, the accountable owner, the edges that let AI reason across the institution and let audit trace any output back to its basis. It is not a fancy database, it's the connections that carry the value. Get that backwards and you'll build the boxes and skip the asset. So here's the principle to carry out of this episode. The value is in the relationships between context artifacts, not the artifacts themselves. Connectedness is what lets AI reason across the institution, and what lets audit trace any output back to its authoritative basis. We now know why it's a graph. Connections are the asset. Next, we get physical. What is this graph actually made of? Two halves, the substrate, the governed content, and the operating capabilities, the control environment around it. That's episode 4. The number on the board report was never the asset, the trail behind it is. I'll see you in episode 4.